Hi, I'm Kathy from the Delafield Quilt Company. If you're new here, welcome. And if you love sewing and quilting, you're in the right spot because I love it too. And I share the projects that I'm working on and how I made them on this channel. For this video, I'm going to show you how I made this star pillow. It's a pretty easy one to put together, and we use the no waste flying geese method. If you love sewing star blocks, I'm also doing a series this summer called the Slow Summer Star Quilt Series. For each episode in the series, I cover one star block and how I make it, and it's going to make a big quilt at the very end of the summer. So if you like stars, check that one out as well. Let's get started with this video. So the fabric that I'm using to make this little star pillow project is coming from the My Country Layer Cake by Kathy Schmitz for Moda. And I'm going to just need 10 squares total from this pack, and I'm going to pick 5 dark squares and 5 light squares. And then I also need some fabric for my border. I'm going to need about 1/4 yard for the border. I'm just using this blue grunge. And I'm also going to need some fabric for the binding, about 1/4 yard for that. I'm also going to be using a red grunge from Moda. And then I'm going to need some fabric for the backing of the pillow top. And it doesn't matter what that is because you're not even going to see it. I'm going to need a piece of batting, about 22 inches as well. And I'm going to need some fabric for the pillow sleeves that you will see, so it does matter what this one looks like. And you need about 3/4 yard for the pillow sleeve. And then also a 20-inch pillow insert. And this pillow finishes about 21 inches by 21 inches. If you don't have layer cake squares, that's totally fine. You can pretty much cut what we need from any fabric. And then I'm going to pick out 5 dark ones. I want some reds and some blues. All right, I've got my pieces picked out. So I'll show you how to cut this. So this goes pretty quick when you're cutting it. I'm just going to stack 2 of these together. You probably could do a few more if you want to go even faster. From each of the 10-inch squares, we're going to need to cut the following. We need 1 3.5-inch square, 4 2-inch squares, 4 2 3/8-inch squares, and 1 4 1/4-inch square. All right, since I want to make sure I can get that all out of these squares, I'm just going to start first with the bigger ones. So for the 4 2 3/8-inch squares, I'm actually going to cut that first because I'm going to start with a 5-inch square that I'm going to cut from here, and then I'm going to trim off these jagged edges, and I'm going to cut that square down to 4 3/4. Then I'm going to cut it into 4 squares, and if I cut them evenly, I should end up with my 4 2 3/8-inch squares. Okay, now that I got that to 4 3/4, I'm just going to cut it in half 2 ways. And I have my 4 2 3/8-inch squares. And I'm just going to sort these right away into their matching partners here. All right, my next biggest one is going to be a 4 1/4-inch square. So I'm just going to cut it a little bigger again. And then I'm going to cut it down so I can trim off those jagged edges. And then for my 4 2-inch squares, I'm just going to do a 4-inch square and then cut that down to 4 2-inch squares. And last and not least, my 3.5-inch square. And then I'm going to repeat that on the rest of my 10-inch squares. All right, let's make the star. We're going to actually do this using one of my favorite methods. If you've seen my channel, you've seen me do this a lot. Using the no waste flying geese method. So to make the no waste flying geese, I need one of the largest squares. And I need the 2 3/8-inch squares. And these should be from a different print than your main square that you're using here. On the back of the 2 3/8-inch squares, I'm just going to draw a diagonal line from one corner to the other. And when I'm doing this, I'm making sure my ruler is a little bit below those points to allow for the thickness of my pencil. And I'm going to repeat that on the other 3 2 3/8-inch squares. And now that these lines are drawn, I'm going to take 2 of them, put one in one corner here, and then layer one right below it, lining up this line diagonally. You do want to make sure your edges align with the bigger square you place them on. And just to make sure these stay in place, I'm just going to put a couple pins. Okay, now that I've got these on here, I'm going to take them to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew 1/4 inch on both sides of that line that I drew earlier. All right, now that I have that sewn on both sides, I am just going to take my ruler and I'm going to cut right on that pencil line. And then I'm going to press these triangles to the dark fabric. Now that these are pressed open, I'm going to take the last 2 3/8 inch squares and I'm going to just repeat the process, putting one on the corner here, making sure that line is diagonally and it falls between these 2 peaks here. Just going to put a pin to keep it in place. Repeat that for the other one here. And now, just like I did before, I'm going to do a 1/4 inch on both sides of this line. Okay, and just like I did with the bigger piece, I'm going to cut this right on that pencil line. And again, I'm going to press this triangle open, and I'm going to have 4 flying geese. Now the hard part of that block was over. All right, so I've got my 4 flying geese here. I'm just going to lay them out in a star pattern. And then I'm going to take the 3.5 inch square that matches the points of the star and put that in the center. And the 2 inch squares that match the white here in the corners. And then I just need to sew this together, so I'm just going to sew it by rows. In the interest of time, I've got one already done to show you. And this is what those little stars look like when they're all sewn together. So the next step in making this star pillow is to make more of these. I've actually already made the 9 that I need. And you'll find that when you make 9 from the 10 squares, you're going to have 1 star left over. So if you wanted to make a second pillow, you're already 1 star in. So then basically, I had laid this out in rows of 3 rows total, and I just went with a dark one, a light one, and a dark one, and then I just sewed them together. And so now I just need to add the border. So I'm adding, it'll be a 2 inch unfinished border. You're going to need probably about 18.5 inches for 2 of the pieces. And then the other 2 would be about 21.5 inches, but I'm going to just sew on my 2 sides first, and then I'm going to just square them off and then measure what the top and bottom piece need to be. Okay, I've got my borders on, and now I am just going to quilt this next. I'm going to take my batting and the backing, and I'm going to quilt it really simple. I'm probably just going to quilt right in the ditch here. And then I'm going to come back, and I'm going to show you how I turn this into a pillow. Okay, so I've got this all quilted now. I just did a simple stitch in the ditch, and I cleaned off my edges, so I took off all the extra batting and backing and squared it up. Okay, so now I'm going to take my fabric that I'm going to use on my pillow sleeves, and on one of the long sides, on the wrong side of the fabric, I'm going to draw a 1 inch line. I'm going to do that to both of these pieces. And this is going to be my mark line, so when I'm folding it, I know what to fold to. And now I'm just going to take my iron and I'm going to fold to the pencil line. I'm going to press it really good once, and then I'm going to fold it again and then press again. I'm going to do that to each of these pieces. Okay, now that I have this folded on both of these sleeve pieces, I'm just going to do a top stitch right along the edge here to close this up. Okay, now that I've got these edges sewn, I'm going to place them right sides up on top of the back of the quilted pillow top. And I'm just going to make sure all the edges are lined up. And I should have a pretty healthy overlap with the one below it. I probably could have folded this a little bit thicker. You might want to do that if you don't want so much of an overlap, but I don't think for this pillow it's going to matter too much. So then the next step is I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch along all 4 edges of this, and this center is going to be open, so I'm still going to be able to insert the pillow through this. So I'm going to go sew around the edges, and then I'm going to also put the binding on, and I will come back and show you what it looks like when it's all finished. And this is what the pillow looks like now that it's all finished. I hope you like this video. If you haven't yet, please subscribe and visit our little quilt shop online at delphioquiltco.com. Have a great day.